Welcome to Wawasan Wire. Today we're talking about Teng Chang Khim's really interesting take on federal and state powers, specifically how they clash sometimes when it comes to local councils. And this isn't, just some dusty legal argument. It's really about who's actually in charge locally and, well, how that affects things on the ground.
Exactly. And understanding where those lines are drawn, jurisdictionally speaking, it's so important.
Yeah.
Because it pops up in these real-world situations, incidents that everyone starts talking about. And they really, well, they show just how complex our system of governance here in Malaysia can be. It's not always straightforward.
Right. So let's get straight into the specific incident that really kicked this whole discussion off again. There was this dental clinic down in Pontian. Suddenly, boom, ordered to shut down for 30 days, a whole month. And the reason given, apparently a worker accidentally put up the Malaysian flag upside down. An accident. Now that feels like a pretty heavy penalty for a mistake. And the person who made the call was the Pontian Municipal Council chairman.
Yeah, and you can imagine, something like that, it causes a stir pretty quickly. National symbols like the flag, they carry a lot of weight, a lot of sensitivity. So any kind of perceived disrespect, even accidental, often gets a really strong, really fast reaction from authorities, especially, at the local level. This Pontian case is a textbook example, really. An error, the immediate decisive action from the council.
And things like this rarely stay just local news, do they? It blew up pretty fast, went national. So the federal minister of housing and local government, Kor Ming, he got involved. He publicly told the Pontian Municipal Council chairman, look, withdraw that 30-day suspension order. Now, for most people listening, you'd think, okay, federal minister steps in, case closed, right? Problem solved.
That's certainly what you'd expect, isn't it? The public generally thinks a federal minister gives an instruction, especially on something this visible, and, well, it gets done swiftly. But, and this is the fascinating part that Teng Chang Khim really zeroed in on, why does the Pontian Council chairman budge? Even after, more than a week? He just stood his ground. And it wasn't just stubbornness, apparently. It points to something much more fundamental about how power is structured.
Okay, so this is where Teng Chang Khim's core argument comes in, and it's pretty direct. He basically said the reason the Pontian Municipal Council just ignored the minister's order was simple. The minister, legally speaking, in that specific situation, just didn't have the authority to force the council to cancel its decision. That's a bold statement. Kind of like saying, nice try, but you're barking up the wrong tree, legally.
Exactly. His intention seemed very clear. Cut through the noise and clarify who actually holds the power here. Teng Chang Khim wasn't really weighing in on whether the 30-day closure was right or wrong about the flag itself. Not his focus. It was more a critical observation, almost like a legal dissection of the rules governing local authorities in Malaysia. He's basically telling everyone, look past the drama, understand the actual legal structure, because knowing who has the legitimate power, well, that's often the real issue, not just the incident itself.
So how could the council just say no? Teng Chang Khim didn't just state an opinion, he backed it up, right? He pointed to the law.
Yeah, he went straight to the Local Government Act 1976, pulled it right out. And what he highlighted there, it really changes how you might view federal versus state power at the local level. He mentioned specific sections. Like Section 3, it says very clearly, apparently, that local governments are set up by state governments. Key point, established by the state, not federal. That's the foundation.
And then there's Section 9. This bit says state governments can give general policy directions to local governments, and the local governments have to follow them quickly. So there's a clear line of command, state to local.
Right, a direct instruction pathway.
And just to hammer that point home, Section 10 gives the state government the power to actually fire the chief officers, the mayors, the council chairman, if they refuse to follow state directives. So the state doesn't just direct, it has teeth to enforce it.
So if you put all those pieces together, what Teng Chang Khim is laying out is, well, it's a very clear division. Under that specific act, the Local Government Act 1976, local councils answer to the state government, period. They fall under state jurisdiction, not federal. Which means, based on this law, the federal government doesn't have the direct legal standing to just order local councils or their officials around. It seems like a deliberate design in the system to keep local matters under state control.
That's a massive distinction. Okay, but surely the federal government isn't completely powerless, right? There must be some mechanism for influence, especially for policies that need to apply everywhere.
There is, yeah, but it's different.
Teng Chang Khim mentioned that too. For those big nationwide policies related to local government stuff, the federal government has a specific route. They have to go through the National Council for Local Government. And this council, it's chaired by the federal minister, sure, but it includes all the state leaders, every menteri besar, every chief minister.
Right. And that structure itself tells you a lot. It shows federal influence isn't a top-down command. It's consultative. It's collaborative. It really highlights how crucial state cooperation is. The whole setup seems designed to prevent the federal government from just steamrolling states on local council issues. It's more like a forum for discussion and hopefully agreement rather than a direct order hotline. It really shows that balance or maybe tension between federal aims and state rights.
Okay, this is getting clearer, but Teng Chang Khim added another layer, didn't he? Something about who actually appoints the council officials. This part was really fascinating.
Oh, yeah, the appointments. That adds another wrinkle.
He pointed out that typically state governments appoint these officials. Makes sense. Many are civil servants. Now, here's the interesting bit. If they happen to be national civil service officers, seconded perhaps, then the federal government might have a lever. They could potentially use administrative orders, like transferring them, if they don't toe the federal line. Sounds like a way around state control.
Potentially, yes, for national civil servants.
And this is the really crucial part, he highlighted some states, like Johor, Kelantan, Terengganu, Kedah, and Perlis, have their own state civil service commissions,
Yeah,
completely separate.
exactly. Their own machinery.
So officials appointed through those commissions, they are purely state government officials. They answer only to the state. And in those cases, the federal government has, well, zero power to transfer them or discipline them directly. Teng Chang Khim apparently used the word helpless to describe federal ministers in such situations, unless, of course, the state government decides to play ball. It sounds like a real checkmate in those states.
It absolutely deepens the picture of Malaysian federalism, doesn't it? It
Yeah.
shows this really significant layer of state autonomy, especially, as Teng Chang Khim noted, in those states with that particular historical background, the former Malay protectorate states. They seem to have this extra degree of control over their own administration, their own civil service. And knowing that distinction, well, it's absolutely critical for any federal minister. It defines the boundaries of their actual power. It helps avoid these kinds of public disagreements where directives just get ignored. It's a stark reminder that our federal structure isn't uniform. It has these unique historical layers that really matter today.
So putting it all together, Teng Chang Khim wrapped up with a pretty sharp warning, didn't he?
He did. Quite pointed.
Basically saying ministers really, really need to check their homework first. They need to be crystal clear on their actual jurisdiction, their legal powers, before they jump in and issue orders like that. Otherwise, they risk looking, well, pretty foolish and causing unnecessary public spats.
Absolutely. I think his overall point is a strong plea for clarity, for respecting the lines drawn by the Constitution and the law, and for having a practical, maybe even hard-nosed understanding of how power actually flows between federal and state levels here. It kind of pushes all of us, you listening too, to think about how these structures work day to day, how they affect governance, and maybe even how they sometimes create friction or, conversely, protect state rights. It makes you ask, is this balance working optimally, or do these clear lines sometimes just lead to deadlock?
That is definitely something to think about. So, what do you think about this whole complex dance between federal and state power over local stuff? Does hearing Tang Chang Kim's breakdown make things clearer for you? Or maybe it just opens up more questions about who really calls the shots? It certainly shows how vital it is for every level of government to, well, know its place, legally speaking. Remember to like and subscribe for more videos like this.